when did you realize I can actually be a successful entrepreneur outside of sports?
When I was a kid, we grew up top 5, top 7 murder capital of the country. And so once you grow up in that environment, it become a survival tactic of what you can and can't do. So you had to figure it out. So, my first job, I was 12 years old, and I worked for my uncle landscaping. I was helping my mom pay rent, 12 years old. And so that mentality, kind of started there, that I would do whatever's necessary in order for me to make it and be successful, whatever I had to do. We came home, we didn't know if the lights was going to be on or fixing those going to be at the door. When you're the man of the house at that age and you start to do things that early, it instills something in you that most people don't have that opportunity to figure out until it's later on in life.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Punch Me in the Face. I'm really excited to have the guest we got on today because not only is this guy been involved in sports, football, National Football League, elite level. I heard a guy last night say, did you hear Jason Tatum said he's humbly one of the best players in the world? Let me explain something to y'all. If you played professional sports, when I mean, like, I'm not trying to be difficult, but people are like, you get paid to play baseball? Yeah, dude, a lot of people do on a lot of levels. That doesn't mean you play. I'm talking about like you in the big leagues, you played, you're one of the best baseball players in the world. You were in the NFL at any point in time. You're one of the best football players in the world. Same with the NBA. It's not complicated, right? So, and that's exciting because Shawne Merriman is one of, and it's funny too because I'm an old school guy. So like I'll be like, so-and-so. I'm like, yeah, dude, it was different before. I'm not mad. I'm just telling you, bro, it was different before. Like dudes played with like fingers hanging off and shit. It was different before. It just was. So, and you continue to live your life that way post athletics. You become a very successful businessman. So Shawne Merriman, thanks for being on. And it's an honor to have you, bro. I consider you a friend. I really have gotten to know you. I would like you a lot. And if you could give all of us I'm sure most everybody's heard of you, walk us through kind of who you are, background stories, a lot of stuff I want to get to with you, man.
Yeah, man. No, thanks for having me on. So, I grew up in Prince George's County, Maryland, right outside the Washington, D.C. area. And had, my mom, raised me and my sister. I had a younger sister, 2 years younger than me. She's 37 now. And, single parent, my dad wasn't around much. We got a pretty good relationship now. I just actually went to dinner with him in Atlanta a few weeks ago. But he wasn't around growing up. And so my mom was kind of left to raise me and my sister around that time. And, this was a difficult time, man, around, the 80s and 90s in Washington, D.C. area, because, actually the neighborhood about a quarter mile from me was top 5, was on the list of the top 5 murder capitals in the country for like 8 years straight. And so that just kind of tell you like that time that we grew up in. Started playing football at 10 years old. And initially I started playing basketball and I kept fouling out every basketball game. So my coach said, we got something for you that you can do this and it's legal. And that's how I got into football. So started playing football as a natural fit, end up, going to high school and becoming, one of the top 20 on ESPN top 20 best players in the country. At that point on, I left and took had a verbal commitment to the University of Maryland my junior year. I verbally committed. I had scholarship offers from, 30 D1 schools in the country, and I ended up going to Maryland. It was my backyard, it was my home. Went there 3 years, was all ACC, all American, all this stuff, and got drafted in 2005 by the San Diego Chargers. And, that's when my pro career started.
So you had told me a story. We were talking one day, and I love people that educate themselves. You told me a story when I'd said to you, we were talking. I said, hey, man, when did you know how different the NFL was? And you was telling me about preseason, practice, some dude trying to block you with like 2 knee braces and 4 elbow, but he was like, can you share that story with us, man? Because that was huge for me. I share that with people all the time.
Yeah. So that play I was talking about was Roman Oben. And, Roman Oben's a left tackle, played for the Giants and I think Giants, Philly and someone else. And so by the time Roman came to the Chargers, he's 12, 13 years in. He had a peg leg, dude. He couldn't move. Braces on, he had a rod in his leg, and he just couldn't move. And, got in practice. I said, man, I'm going to run past, I'm going to kill this old dude, right? And every day he was blocking me, and I could not beat him. I said, what in the hell? Like, how? So the first couple of days of practice, I could not block him. I mean, I could not go past. He kept blocking me every single day. And finally, like the third or fourth day, I said, Roman, how? What are you doing? He literally told me that how I was in my stance and way I was turned and which foot I had up, how high I was. He knew everything that I was doing because he watched film on me. And so he brought me in the film room and he said, okay, that's what you do. You don't point your foot this way. You don't lean this way, because when I know you lean this way, you're coming inside. You got an inside move. He broke everything down. So I learned at that point, I said, man, these guys at a different level. And that's when I started to watch film and I took my game to the next level.
So it's funny because a lot of people in life won't do that, right? And obviously you've been able to not only do that athletically, but in business, because there are people that are crazy talented, but they so full of themselves that they would have gotten their ass blocked for 2 months. And then if they weren't one of the top picks, they can get cut. Like, they can just go home. Like, dude can't get by him. He's going home instead of going like, hey, man, help me out understand why I'm not having success, right? You had said something, and if you don't mind sharing, because you talked, and I have a lot of respect. I've not met your dad, but with the way everything went down, and my mom raised me, me and my little brother, I actually now have this, relationship with my, like, it's actually all right, and takes some time, went years not talking at all. And, but can you walk, because your dad, did you see you play in high school at all?
No, my dad actually ran tracks. My mom played basketball and my dad ran track. So that's how I got that, that combination. My mom was a big girl too. She was low on the 5'9", 165, 70 pounds. Thick, played basketball. My dad still hosts state track records in Maryland.
Wow. So your dad didn't go to any high school games?
No.
Knew you were playing, knew you were kicking ass, knew you were dominating the world, but never shows up because it wasn't in your life.
Yep.
When's the first time he saw you play?
I didn't see my dad from the ages of 10 to 26.
Okay.
I talked to him on the phone one time my freshman year at the University of Maryland. We talked on the phone for 3 hours. He said, hey, this is my address, this is my number. But I'm not going to be one of those dads that kind of, once my kid made it, I'm going to show back up in his life. So that part of it, I respected him for. I said, he's not trying to come around. He's not asking me for anything. No problem. And so my last year in Buffalo, I reached out to him because I knew I was about to retire. And he came, he drove up from Atlanta, him and his wife, and they came to my very last game. And at that point, I was like, okay, my dad seen me in person, I can retire. I've done everything I needed to do on the football field. And that was, for me, was like closure all the way around. I was ready to move on at that point. But at that point, he hasn't seen me since I was 10 years old. So he came up. I was staying downtown Buffalo. I gave him the address. His wife came up. She walked around the corner. I met her first. And my dad was walking around. He wasn't even walking. He was so nervous to come around the corner. And when he saw me for the first time, he burst out in tears. It's the first time he's seen me since I was 10 years old. And that was a really cool moment for me, man, because I wasn't expecting that. From what I've known of my dad, he was tough. His wife said she's seen him cry one time in 20 years, ever. And that was when his mom passed away. She said she's never saw him cry, complain, or do anything ever. And so that was a cool moment for me. We got a chance to meet. He met my son. My son was there for the first time. So it was one of these things, man. It was closure for me. It was, made me feel good, made him feel good, because I didn't hold any animosity, any anger towards him. I actually understood kind of the situation, being older now. And so that was cool. That was cool for me.
Well, I mean, I think, and also, we talk a lot about trying to help people change where they're at, right? And a lot of times the shit we hold on to, dude, don't benefit us. It's like it's this badge of honor. Dude, it's almost like one out of every people I meet. They're like, I'm curious. So I'm like, yo, I won't talk to him. I don't talk to my brother for nothing. I'm like, dude, it's the only brother. Like, fuck, I ain't gonna talk to him ever. It's like, dude, it's the only brother. Like, is that the only biological brother you got? Yes. Well, my mom, I ain't messing with my mom. It's like, dude, these people are gonna die, or you're gonna die one day. And I'm telling you, and I'm not trying to preach people do what they do with their families, but it's a precious deal. And thank God y'all were able to rekindle. And then your kid got a granddad. I mean, like it got that's the other thing you forget with these kids. Like that was my deal. My kids, even if you weren't the greatest dad, like I'm saying in my situation, like, dude, you can be an awesome grandfather. Cause like they're post everything else we went through, dude. You can be awesome with them. So, and I think, and I don't judge nobody, but I always think it's funny when guys show up and jump around because they want the attention because their kid's doing something. It's like, dude, ain't got shit. Like, okay, you helped with the genetics, but my man, he went and did all that, and they start jawing at other people. So I have a lot of respect for him for that. It's pretty
and to that point, Shawne, to be honest, he had to sit back and watch his kid grow up to be a big time, football player, all these accolades and all the thing I did without him. He was actually beating himself. I had to stop him from beating himself up.
Yeah.
And I said, man, look, if I was still holding on, if I still felt any kind of animosity towards you, you wouldn't be here. And I actually had to get him to stop apologizing for not being around. I said, man, like, let's forget, let's move on. Right? It killed him enough that his son was successful without any of his help. And so I think that's important for people to say, look, they got to get over it, right? Because as you said, he's not going to be around forever. People in your family, anybody's not going to be around forever. And if they didn't do anything to you to hurt your life, do something like that, why hold on to it? And that was kind of my whole thinking of everything. Like, man, I have a son now, and my son deserves to meet his granddad, regardless of how I feel about him. And so we actually, man, we went to dinner. I've probably seen him 4 or 5 times since, or 6 times since. We went to dinner, man, and we're so much alike in a lot of different ways, and kind of watching this mannerism. It's so weird. We actually, when he got there to my place, we had 3 of the same type of tattoos in the same areas of our body, right? We had money sign, crosses, everything. It was exact same. It was so weird. But I think it's important for everybody to, kind of rekindle that. You don't have to have, the same relationship or anything like that, but you have to be able to let that go.
Amen, dude. It'll eat you alive. So here's what I want to talk about next, because we've talked about this a little bit. And when you say it, I believe you, first of all, because you never bullshit me. But I have this, when I was learning how to drive, or when I would drive, when my old man was around, and if he was drinking, which was all the time, and I had to drive, right? And he'd be like cussing me out, like, what are you driving a fucking boat? Thinking, bro, I'm 13, bro. I'm trying to figure this shit out, right? And I remember one time the guy beeped at me, and I was 13. So I was like, I flipped him off, right? Because he beat me. And he said, pull the car over. And I thought he meant like, pull the car over. He's going to get out and whoop this grown ass man's ass and when we pulled over, he just got his beer. He said, well, get out and handle it. I'm thinking, bro, I'm 71 pounds with no hair on my nuts. You know what I mean? Like, right. But I'm like, literally like, this fool's for real. And he said to me, you open your mouth or you say something, you stand behind it. You no matter what it is. Now, athletes, in my opinion, somehow, and I love you for your answer, because you've told me this before, I'm trying to understand the psychology behind the fact that we as a society expect athletes to live at a much higher level. Like, if you walked into Amazon and got in somebody's face and said, you fucking suck, screamed and yelled at them, they would either call the cops, have you arrested. If the guy snapped, he might smack you. Like, do we ask athletes to deal with a lot of shit that we don't ask anybody else to deal with in any other aspect of life?
Yeah, and it took me a while to understand the thought process into fans and people and things like that. And so we're looked at as these big time figures, right? the stature, the discipline. We do a lot of things that 98% of people on this earth won't do. You talked about, hey, I've put fingers back in place. I put dislocated shoulders back in place, slapped the harness on it, and jumped back in the game. I played with partially torn knees and ligaments. So society look at us as like these superheroes, and like we're not, right? And so, I've seen the other day Russell Westbrook. People come up to the stage and saying things, or the guy said, I said, look, you wouldn't do it. Joey. I was watching a clip the other day. The outside linebacker for the Chargers, Joey Bosa. He was with his family. He was his brother Nick Bosa plays for the San Francisco 49ers, and this fan come up. He's with his family, right, and point at him and talking shit and saying these things. And I'm like, first of all, you come around my family.
That's right.
I don't care if you say anything to me. If you come 10 in a 10-feet radius, you're talking shit, and I got my mom there, my sister, something might happen, right? Because you wouldn't do that to a
as it should. It should.
Yeah, and I'm very protective over my family, and I'm very protective over that. And so I got no problem if somebody's talking smack to me. And I don't care about that. But that was a different situation. But I think that fans look at this and they know that an athlete won't or can't do anything because of the situation, the level, the position they're in. So they won't do it. But I just ultimately think that, if you're looking at these athletes as your superheroes and all that, and this is who you strive to be, it's just the wrong mindset to have, because outside of the sport and the job that we do for a living, we're just like everybody else, right? And so you come up and you do these things, whatever, there could be some retaliation back. So I think that's when you got to just really separate yourself. I've only had a couple of incidents. Don't get me wrong. I used to love going to play in the Black Hole Raider Stadium and them talk shit and say stuff. And, I love that part of it. I love being the villain when I walk in somebody else's stadium. But there is a point where you can cross the line.
There's a line.
Yeah, there's a line, and it's been crossed several times in this day and age.
Well, and I had Zay Jones on here recently, wide receiver for the Jaguars, was with the Raiders, was the Bills, no, the Raiders, and he was talking about his experience with the Bills, and I was like, and no disrespect, I love y'all, but like, and he said something about the way it all went down. I was like, damn, they should worry more about winning something than treating you like shit, because they still ain't won nothing. So that's all I got to say about that. But he said he'd be like in a store, like getting a sandwich, and dudes are getting his face, and what's scary now, again, I have a master's degree in psychology, undergraduate in social work. I don't think I'm a genius. I ain't like Jordan Peterson, the PhD. It's online. He's smart as shit. He's got some cool strategies. Awesome. But what's funny is, how come people don't treat tennis players this way? They don't treat hockey players this way. Those are sports that are not dominated by anybody's a minority. They're white. Yeah. They're white. They don't do it to golfers. You're not even allowed to talk as a golfer swinging a club, right? You like, they will throw you out if you make a noise. And I'm not like trying to figure out all this systemic racism in life, but I'm just trying to tell you, like, you're a monster, right? You're a big dude. If you come up and point in my face that I suck, I'm going to punch you in the fucking face. Now, you're trained, wrap me up, we're going to go. But there ain't no way that I'm going to go, yeah, I guess I am. We're going to fight. And because I don't treat anybody that way. I don't go out of my way and treat anybody that way. They were talking about this the other day with the ball goes in the stands at the Nuggets game, and he goes to grab the ball, and the owner won't give it to him. Right. Owner, the walk-on from Michigan State, he got the ball, and he's in charge. He's a billionaire. He didn't get the ball. And Jokic wants the ball. Like basketball, you got to get a move, right? You get it, you want to go. And then he reaches over, barely touches me, flails back. And then the owner comes on and goes, well, I hope they don't suspend him. It's like, dude, of course you're not going to, like, who do you think you are? Like, you get to alter the game, say whatever you want. And I think that's the funny thing about going to games as a fan, right? I go as a fan of the sport. No disrespect to the players, they're great. But I go as a fan of the sport. I go as a fan of competition. My life doesn't depend on whether you win or lose. Even when I gamble, and I gamble a lot, I don't think that anybody misses tackles to screw me. I don't think they throw interceptions to screw me. I don't think there's some script. The game's not fixed. But as a fan, I was at a game the other day, and the guy's screaming and yelling and cussing. And I'm like, he ain't cussing at me. So but the minute they do, it's like, hey, bro, fuck off. And it's funny because then they don't say nothing because there's this no accountability, which I think is a bigger societal issue. How as you're growing and becoming a professional athlete, how do the coaches, do the develop, like, when did you learn that early on? Like, what do they say to y'all?
Well, you have to, and I'll give you a prime example of what happened to me and after a game. And this is probably the one time I've been the most pissed off at it. So we played a game. This is in 2000. It's in 2007. I just tore my knee against the Titans. I just tore my PCL, LCL, and I'm still playing. Right, I'm wrapping it up. I'm bracing up. I'm going out there. I'm like a pirate out there. My knee is screwed, and I'm still playing. So after the game, I walk into the players' parking lot, and there was a fan who jumped the fence. I'm getting in my car. He jumped the fence, asked for an autograph and a picture. I got no problem with that. You know what he told me? He said, man, you guys, we lost that game. He said, you guys lost. I lost my fantasy league, and was pissed off at me because he lost his fantasy league. And so I lied to you not, lost his fantasy league because this one you can start picking defenses and all this other stuff. So he was pissed off that he lost his fantasy league. And I literally told the dude, get the hell. I'm dragging my knee. I got ice wrapped around my knee. I'm getting in my car. I'm dragging across the players' parking lot. And this guy's pissed off because he lost his fantasy league. And from that point on, the crazy part is I never played fantasy because of that reason. I never played fantasy football. Matter of fact, even when I got signed to do NFL Network, and they would have their fantasy football league part of the show, I would ask them to take me off. I was so pissed off at just, fans feeling entitled to be able to do something like that or say something like that to you. But then the flip side of that is we do something that very many people get a chance to do. So anytime a fan feels like they pay a ticket, right? They pay a fee for a ticket, $100, whatever it costs for a ticket. They feel this sense of entitlement, like, hey, I paid to come here. I can do what I want. And that's the mentality it's been. And you're right. It's more basketball, more football. Hockey games get pretty crazy. I go, nights games a couple times a year. I see the Rangers. It happens, but it's more with the 2 or 3 sports that you just said.
100%. And you know what's really insane is when you start looking at, I worked as a social worker for 14 years, and we did all this data. And one day I was like to my boss, I said, hey man, can I ask you something? The most domestic violence cases, we're trying to run all those numbers. The most reports of domestic violence come in Sundays in the fall. And I'm not even thinking about it. And the guy had been there 40 years. He said, you know why, right? I go, no, I have no idea. He goes, football. I go, what? He goes, these guys think like their team loses, it's like we lost. Like they're drinking too much, they're too messed up. And it's like, I told a guy one day, we were at I think we even saw you at the game. We were at one of the Raiders games, and he's popping off. And I was like, bro, how are you going to explain getting knocked the fuck out by a guy in cargo shorts and a fucking t-shirt because you're popping off? Like, just go sit down, eat your shit. But like, it's that crazy because people, and it's a fantasy. I say it's all the time. I wish more people were as passionate about their life. And let's get to that, because you are as passionate about their business life, their family life, as they are some other people playing a sport that it's not their team. Like, I appreciate you being a fan. Like, I'm totally cool with that. And that's good. It's what makes professional sports. I love the excitement. I love 100,000 people being at college football games. That's awesome, dude. I love it. But your life, you made a transition, Shawne, where you didn't stay in that attitude your entire life, right? You found another way to compete. You can't play in the NFL forever. What's the average player in the NFL last? How many years?
4 years max.
4 years. 3-4 years, bro, because it's brutal. 3-4 years, right? And that's what they can last. So you get done. How many years you play?
Almost 9.
Almost 9. Body's still pretty jacked up.
Yeah, I feel good, but once you go into that knife one time, you're never the same. So
that's right. But you work hard to feel good.
Yeah,
like eat right, work out all the time. That's a lot of work. A lot of people don't do that, right?
Yep.
what made you decide I want to be a businessman? And when did you realize I can actually be a successful entrepreneur outside of sports? Forget about talking about sports, being on ESPN, like being a personality. I can go be a businessman. What happened in your life to make you realize that?
It started young, man. So we when I was a kid, we grew up top five, top seven murder capital of the country. We were always up there. So when the crack epidemic hit Washington, D.C., when it hit the U.S., it hit Washington, D.C. first before anywhere else in the country. It hit Washington, D.C. first. And it was like, you ever see these zombies, these apocalypse movies, you got, fiends walking over, you're stepping over needles, prostitution. I mean, it was shitty. Left and right, it was shitty. And so once you grow up in that environment, it become a survival tactic of what you can and can't do. And you also, like we talked about, my dad wasn't around. My mom worked 2 jobs, and she had her struggles with drugs and stuff like that when I was growing up as well. So you had to figure it out. So my first job, I was 12 years old, and I worked for my uncle landscaping. So I'll cut grass during the summers. During the winters, I would shovel snow. During the spring and those, I would wash cars. I would rake leaves. Whatever I had to do I was helping my mom pay rent. Pay bills at 12 years old. And so that mentality, kind of started there, that I would do whatever's necessary in order for me to make it and be successful, whatever I had to do. And so I end up having to figure things out at a very young age, because let me tell you, when you're the man of the house at that age and you start to do things that early, it instills something in you that most people don't have that opportunity to figure out until it's later on in life, that all those things, bills and how to be an adult, it happens when you're in your 20s. I had to grow up at 12, 13 years old. I was already paying bills. And so from that point on, that mentality of, we didn't know this word back then, this entrepreneur word, right? I was selling Nintendo games, Sega games, PlayStation games. I would trade one of my good games and get five average games, but I'll have 5 games to play now. So that mentality started at a young age. And so you get to the NFL, and now you're financially capable of doing a lot of things. So my first thing I did when I was 21 years old, I bought the name and rights to Lights Out, because I got that nickname when I was 16 years old. I knocked out 4 players in the game my sophomore year in high school, and that name stuck with me. So when my rookie year, when I finally got my bonus, I got my first signing bonus. I asked a good friend of mine, Greg Wiseman, who was a IP attorney, and I said, "Man, I want to get Lights Out. Who owns Lights Out?" And so it was a company called PJ Salvage in California, a little bit outside of LA. They were $100+ million company. I seen that they were making pajamas and some kind of accessories and bracelets and things using Lights Out. So I went after these guys, and I negotiated a deal. I ended up buying it for like $175,000, $150,000, bought all the name rights. So I had this mindset to do it, even though I didn't necessarily know what I was doing there. But that mindset, that entrepreneurial spirit was there. I started to sell Lights Out clothes and sports memorabilia shops. This is while I was playing. So I would leave practice some days, and I would go meet with some of these buyers of these sports memorabilia shops, and I would get Lights Out in there. And so necessarily it was about me creating the brand. And so that transition for me, when I got done and I started, my first deal, I did a 2-year deal with NFL Network. I went over to Fox Sports for 2 years, went to ESPN for 2 years, then back to Fox Sports for a couple of years. So that's that mindset of being able to create something out of nothing and figure it out, because you had to. It was a sink or swim situation. There was no way around it. We came home, we didn't know if the lights was going to be on or eviction notice was going to be at the door. And in fact, I was homeless when I was a kid. We had lost our house because our lights and everything got cut off, our gas, electricity, and my mom had lit a candle, and the candle had burned through the TV in my room. So we ended up being homeless. We slept in cars, slept in shelters, slept in churches. Whoever would let us stay there, we stayed there. And it wasn't until I had a normal life when I moved in with my coaches. So it was a sink or swim situation where I had to figure it out. And that's what I did. But I started to plant those seeds while I was playing. So that transition for me when I got done was pretty easy.
So, but also if you guys listen to the way, first of all, surround yourself with some good people. Like I knew this IP attorney, I knew somebody. I asked him, I talked to him, I went and met with people, I educated myself. And the one thing I've never heard you do once, and I've heard a lot of people do it that don't, and I'm not, that's their business, is you were very successful as a football player. That didn't mean anybody owed you anything in the world of business. It didn't. And you never acted that way, ever. It's like, dude, I've been successful here. Cool. I got it. You've done a lot of amazing things. Now you got lights out. You got extreme. So you got talk to us about that, because that is, you're doing some pretty cool thing. I've been watching this. It's been a few years now, and I'm watching you. And I remember a guy that we know mutually said to me, "What do you think?" And I said, this was a few years back. I said, I don't think he's got it figured out yet, but that dude's never going to quit until he does. He knows enough people and he's going to figure it out. And you got it. I mean, you got this thing on track, dude. Like if you all have not, you got to watch his fights. I've been there in person, but talk to us about that. Because it's a really interesting world, and the way you're going about it's pretty intriguing to me as well.
Yeah, so I Lights Out Extreme Fighting, MMA promotion. We're on football TV, but how I got into MMA in the first place was after my rookie year. We talked about learning your craft, watching film, getting better. I realized that I wasn't using my hands as a pass rusher. I was just big, strong, fast. I was going to go around you, or I was going to go through you, right? But I was not using my hands. And so one day I was in the gym, and I grew up boxing a little bit. I have uncles in my family that were professional boxers, so we naturally grew up boxing. Jay Glazer over at Fox Sports said, he said, Shawne, I know you got a boxing background, but have you ever looked into MMA? I think it might help your football career. And I said, dude, if it's going to help me be a better pass rusher, sign me up, right? I'm going. So he texted me an address, it was on La Brea in Los Angeles. He said, meet me there tomorrow. I show up to the gym, and Jay Glazer's on my left, and Randy Couture is on my right. So my first day walking into any MMA gym, I'm looking Randy Couture dead in the eyes. And so I started to learn how to pummel and use my hands, leverage, and all this stuff. And I said, man, this is really cool. So anyway, I got really good with my hands. That second year I came out, I led the NFL in sacks. And I just got a lot better. So that every offseason I started to train with Chuck Liddell. We've been around Chuck in our relationship, the Tito Ortiz, Tyrone Whitley's, all these guys when they were coming up and in the sport, I was around every offseason. And so in 2018, I said, you know what? I know how to do this shit, right? I've been in TV now at that point for 8 years. I created shows for NFL Network, Fox Sports. That was, production. I understood that. And I understood the business of MMA. And I actually had a passion for the sport. So I launched Lights Out Extreme Fighting. And we initially started out on Fox Sports West and Prime Ticket, the regionals. And so what I did was let's go back to kind of being a, entrepreneur and just, hey, I'm making this shit happen no matter what. So one day I was shooting on the Colin Cowherd show. And, I got offset. And I realized that, UFC had just left the Fox Sports. They went over, they got the big deal, that $2 billion deal with ESPN. And so I got upset. I walked upstairs, and the president of Fox Sports, Eric Shanks, the door was cracked, right? I didn't schedule any meetings, anything like that. And I kind of just peeked my head in, and I'm looking, see if he saw me and they can call me in there. Said, yeah, Shawne, come on in. I said, yo, Eric, you guys are, you just lost UFC to ESPN. Are you looking to get back into MMA? He said, Shawne, in fact, we are. We're looking at a couple different things. So I had a Lights Out Extreme Fight marketing deck already done in my hand. I said, hey, I know you're busy. When you get a second, though, can you do me a favor? Can you look at this? And I put the marketing deck down on the desk. Left the office, didn't think I would even get a call back, a few days, week, whatever. They called. I got my garage. Before I opened my door handle in the Fox Sports garage, my phone is blowing up. And, it's a number from Fox Sports, a lot. So I said, hello. They asked me to come back upstairs. So they said, hey, when could you have this up and going? Now, mind you, Shawne, I don't know shit, right? I don't know how long it takes to put everything together. I said, we'll be ready in 2 months. He said, really? That fast? I said, yeah, just give me 2 months. And I had no idea we actually could be ready or not, but we were going to be ready in 2 months no matter what.
Amen.
He said, Shawne, we want to give you a shot. Go over there and see Josh Oakley at Fox Sports 1. They sent me to Fox Sports 1. I had to stand up in the front of the room, all these people, and pitch the plans and the marketing thing, everything we wanted to do, the production, the plans going forward. He said, well, all right, we'll give you a shot on the Fox Sports Regionals. And so first time out on Fox Sports West and Prime Ticket, we tied the Anaheim Ducks in viewership. And so at that point, they said, oh, we got something, real. And so we got up there. We were like right behind the Angels and Clippers in viewership. We were up there, did extremely well. Pandemic hit, crushed everybody like it did. So I was able to get a deal in the partnership with Fubo. So we just had our fight Saturday, and we just got the numbers back. We most viewed show ever. We cracked into the Fubo Sports top 5 most watched ever. And we're right up there with their top program behind international soccer, which is unheard of for, a singular league that's not, fully international just yet. And so, I found my way in this sport, man, because for one, there's a passion of mine, but I thought that this platform that I built in NFL, the followers, social media, and all this stuff, my connections, outreach, relationships, I said, man, we can really take this thing to the moon. And I had a direct pathway to do it, and that's just been my life, since I started building this thing.
So, well, first of all, when's your next fight?
Next one will be July 22nd, San Diego.
July 22nd, San Diego. So y'all anywhere near it, get there. You don't want to miss it. It's one hell of a show. One hell of production. The athletes are. I mean, I've been very impressed with what y'all put on. But if you listen, because again, a lot of time I like to listen to people and I hear what they say and I think about what I can relate to and what I can't, right? Like most people aren't going to go up to the president and give him a deck. They're just not. They're not going to peep their head in the window and see if dude calls them in. They're not going to say, you know what, 2 months. 2 months. That most people, I don't know. Let me figure it out. Paralysis by analysis. 2 months, man. Don't know if we can do it. We got to do it. I got a shot here to get it. And I'm telling you, man, you're in everything, dude. You're building a business in life insurance. You're doing this massive thing in MMA. You have a lot of stuff going on. And I think y'all are going to continue to hear the name Lights Out and Shawne Merriman. And you also have a lot of humility for all the things you've accomplished. And for that, I'm very thankful, dude. I love being around you. Love seeing you network with people. That's the other thing. Watch people, you watch somebody doing that growing up, whether it was coaches or somebody else, you watched people that were good at it because you're really good at it. You're great at networking. And, it's an honor to have you on Punch Me in the Face, dude. We'll put the link out to your show. We'll put the link out to your social media. Follow Lights Out. Follow Shawne Merriman. Get to the damn show. I promise you'll want to see it. And anything you want to say in closing, bro?
No, that's it. Just everybody out there, the entrepreneurs or people that's like trying to figure shit out. You just have to keep going forward, right? Like you're not going to get up every day. I mean, I had a cold this last couple of days. I'm like, okay, cool. I won't go out and do anything. I force myself to go do a sauna workouts and stuff. And I get back and I say, okay, cool. I'll just work 12, 13 hours from home. I'll call, I dial, I'll reach out, send marketing decks, sponsorship decks all day. I said, I'll just do this shit all day. And so you have to, you got to figure it out, keep going forward. And most importantly, just know that whatever you're dealing with, everybody goes through the shit, man. Everybody's going through something. And so it's one of my, I don't complain about anything. There's not one thing I wake up, I have no complaints about anything. Either if things are really, messed up, I'm not complaining about anything because there's somebody out there doing a whole lot worse than you are and you don't even know it. And so I keep that mindset to, keep falling for it no matter what happens and, just keep going, man. That's that I want to just keep going because that's ultimately you're going to end up where you want to. It might take a little longer. It might, some forks in the road. You might go left, whatever. But if you keep going, you'll ultimately get there.
Man, that's great advice. Where can people follow you at, dude, if they want to follow you?
At Shawne Merriman on Twitter and Instagram, and at Lights Out XF on Twitter and Instagram as well. Our next fight will have tickets up for sale at Lights Out XF. And I'll make this announcement here, and I'll say, whenever this comes out, but we'll be live on Fubo. But a week later, we'll be airing after some of the Major League Baseball games on Bally's regionals in the country. So, we're on Roku, Samsung, Vizio. Just did a deal with Amazon Freebie, and so we just cranking, man. We just knocking things out the park.
Well, I love it. I appreciate you. I wish you nothing but all the success in the world, dude. You're going to get it either way. I mean, again, I keep searching for all these entrepreneurial truths and golden rules, and attitude and activity, dude, always went out. You got a great attitude. I've never heard you complain about anything. You're always working your ass off, and that just seems to always yield a result. So, guys, I appreciate you watching today. I appreciate your time. Please like, share, subscribe, comment. If I did something you think was fucked up, tell me. I'll talk to you about it. I'm all good. If it was good, bad, whatever. Merriman, you crushed it. You're a machine, and it's an honor to know you, brother. Appreciate you, dude.
Same here, my man. Appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.